Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's exactly 10:05. I think we can start. A very warm welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on positioning for growth, South Africa's emerging economic opportunities. My name is Kensani Maruleke. I am from the City of Johannesburg, Department of Economic Development, and I will be your facilitator for today's session. So we are also live. We're streaming live across all Proudly South African's digital platforms. On Facebook, it's at Proudly South African. On Instagram is at proudly.sa. On X is at proudly.sa. And on YouTube, it's Proudly South African. So as we begin, it is important to note that while South Africa's economy is showing signs of recovery, growth remains constrained due to structural challenges. And of course, with the war that is going on now, that is obviously going to be, a highlight of some of our vulnerability in terms of our economy. So this brings us to the big question of the day, which is, are we positioning ourselves to take advantage of emerging opportunities? That is the major question that we want to answer today. So just some housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded live on various platforms. All our participants are remaining on mute. However, there is an opportunity to engage through our chat function. So all the questions can be submitted throughout the sessions. You are free to post all the questions, and those questions will then be addressed during the Q&A segment. And kindly ensure that your name and your organizations are also displayed on the platform. So we appreciate your participation and encourage a respectful and engaging session for the day. So before we begin with our first presenter, let us take a moment to set the context for today's discussion. We will begin with a short video highlighting the mandate of Proudly South African, its role particularly in local procurement and economic development. I will allow the technical team to roll over the clip. Thank you.
As a voice that is calling, loudly calling, day by day, the voice of the future.
When I started my business, all I wanted was to create jobs and a legacy for the next generation, because I see opportunity when others see impossibility.
It all started with a thought and then a seed in the garden, which grew into my very own farm that feeds the whole nation daily.
Cotton, silk, and a little bit of treasure, I create masterpieces that give South Africans an identity, comfort, and confidence, because when you look good, you feel good.
From the factory workers to the warehouse and then over the seas, I want to show the world what Proudly South African looks like. It all started with just some ink on paper and inspiration to bring people together. With my furniture, I now help create spaces that are beautiful, comfortable, and authentic to human light and connection.
I've always been driven by curiosity. It fueled my dreams to create automobiles that accelerate our nation into greater possibilities and the beauty of the unknown.
I was born into a rainbow nation. My life has been full of colors and mixed flavors. And when I started my bakery, I wanted to share the joy with the world and with South Africans in particular.
All I ever dreamt of was to be a bird and fly high. And now I have the wings to help others fulfill their dreams of flying high too.
But it can only be a dream until you make it a reality. All they need is your faith, your trust, your loyalty, your appreciation.
And most importantly,
Your support
because supporting local businesses
Helps create jobs
And secures our future.
South Africa, their future is in your hands. So what are you going to do about it? Be proudly South African. Buy local to create jobs.
Thank you very much for that. And I think that provides very great context in terms of how Proudly South African is contributing to supporting local businesses and subsequently creating jobs. So we'll now move to our first presentation of the day. So our first speaker will be sharing insights on building sustainable SME growth, focusing on ethics, reputation, and long-term value. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Tshepo Matseba, who is the Managing Director of Reputation First Group. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I hope everybody can hear me. It's good to see that entrepreneurs are here to participate in an opportunity that Proudly South African presents, but also in an opportunity that South Africa presents, because I think that in our country we have an opportunity. Yes, there are many problems, and we accept that there are many problems, but I think that there are more opportunities than problems. I want to touch on. I went through in thinking about this because I'm going to talk to entrepreneurs and I've got a very limited time. I don't have. I thought about, okay, can I do slides? Yeah, I've got slides and I'll send them to you afterwards. But how do I lend the message of my experiences as an entrepreneur and as a South African, given the context of what we're going through right now? And firstly, I wanted to talk about the false choices that entrepreneurs or SMEs or SMMEs make. But let's discuss the false choice and accept that we know. I knew from day one when I started the business, when I left corporate. So I've spent 17, 18, maybe even 20 years in the private sector, in financial services, from Momentum, Discovery, MTN, Huawei, Liberty, Old Mutual, and Old Mutual Insure. And in all those environments, there are two types of people that I picked up. That there is an entrepreneur, like the guy who comes in asking for business and they do amazing work. But there's also the entrepreneur in a corporate, in a sense that they start divisions, they start entities, they develop entities, and they make it work. I've watched both of those sides continuously. But one of the things that we face as entrepreneurs is this discussion about how do I make money? How do I get in the boardroom? Because they often, and entrepreneurs and chair, you need to alert me when I'm going over time. But entrepreneurs often have the dilemma that you want and need the business. It's very important. I need the business, you need the business. But there's a person who must make a decision for you to get the business, and that person often asks you for a favor. And the favor, in today's terms, they've even gone beyond just please help me with a short-term problem to becoming a pattern that pay me a retainer. So as a small business, you get a job. You have to account to the revenue service for that job. You have to account to South Africa, and you have to account to your business and your life at some point. But now you have this person that you need to pay. because they make it impossible for you to get business if you don't sort them out. And so I think that's the preface of this conversation, that I I believe we need to have and have it openly, because when I talk to the media, the same issues come up, same issues, and they are all fueled by desperation of entrepreneurship. That because we can't get the work openly, we now have this obligation to these people, but that obligation becomes a lifetime obligation, sometimes a digital footprint, but sometimes even an embarrassing 2 cents. For example, if you look at the pain that our colleague at the SABC went through for accepting, I mean, I don't know how she's going to defend that story, but she has accepted 500 rands from a very, very lethal character. Now, all of us are here judging. You are probably on the phone now looking at who's this and how are we going to, so we all have a view about her, but no one actually is willing to say. But we all get this kind of offers, or we make this kind of offers. I will tell you, as a reputation specialist, the number of journalists who say to me, I'm broke, I have nothing, I can't feed my family tonight. What will you do? Make a plan. And the extent to which I have to ask myself, is this going to be interpreted as a bribe? Because at some point, this person must give me media coverage. They must talk about my client or myself. What is the right thing to do? What is the right thing to do? And that's the pain. And entrepreneurs, actually, I think we make false choices when it comes to business. That if we don't pay this individual, because we're only looking at one set of a market. So I'm a South African, proudly South African. We look at South Africa as an entity and as an opportunity, but we don't realize that you don't actually have to do this. If you go to Japan, if you go to Germany, you may find that a view of a South African in that market is more important than a view of a South African in South Africa. So that's the first thing I wanted to clarify, that or to lend, that we should sleep on the false choices that we as entrepreneurs face, and we make often the false choice because we think, if I don't do what this person is asking me, I'm not going to get the business. But we don't see that the consequences of this decision is going to leave not only a digital footprint, but a lifetime pain of this person asking me for this favor for the rest of my life and for the rest of my business journey. But besides that, by the way, there is no investor who's going to come into a business when you search and forget Google. There are search engines in China, in India, that are separate, independent, but they pick up your name. So the question is, how are you going to survive and do business in the world globally if you keep receiving these requests and you honor the requests and you make it impossible for yourself to trade in the future because a Madlanga commission may come up? But beyond that, you don't sleep at night because you know that there's a character or a clown next to you who's always asking for impossible gains. Here's the truth. The South African revenue, in our country at least, we can talk about other countries, but in our country at least, the South African Revenue Service is going to look for me and you at some point and ask, how did you receive this money? Why did you pay this person? In what context were you paying that person? And if there's an audit, was there correspondence? Was there a brief for this job? And often you find that there was no brief because this was a handshake. And these handshakes are the reasons why South African businesses, especially small businesses, do not thrive. And remember, small businesses are the biggest employer. Forget about what it looks like in the media and on social media, where people create a story and they look like they're entrepreneurs. But entrepreneurship is actually not this thing that we are seeing online. Entrepreneurship is about a purpose. And the problem we have, you and I today, as entrepreneurs, is that the purpose has been diluted and is being diluted. Today, as we speak, it's being diluted by not only one factor of bribes, corruption, and so on, but by the fact that we are also battling, we're hungry. And when entrepreneurs are hungry, they make irrational decisions. And for me, it leads us to the second point about how did we get to a point where we normalize unethical behavior? Because and this is a very important part, that inducements may seem like a humble gesture. They also look kickbacks. They look like, I care. I'm asking you to help a family. But the reality of all of this is that unethical behavior in our country and our context for entrepreneurs and small businesses has become normalized. So you will earn $1 million on a project or 2 million on a project, but you end up paying half, or sometimes for poor entrepreneurs, for people who are going through serious difficulties, they actually pay 40% to themselves and 60% towards unethical conduct. Here's the reality and what's going to happen at a certain point. So besides the fact that there's an arrest, there's SARS, there's the client investigating you, there's no honor among thieves. So the same person that took cash from you and put it in their pocket, and tomorrow they get fired from their job, they are coming back to ask you for more. And they're going to ask you forever. Why would they ask you for more and forever? Because you are probably their only hope. And that's why you will find that small businesses end up hiring the same crooks who gave them business before, because they are trying to at least recover. I've given this chap cash. Now he's here or she's here all the time. What is the proposition and solution? Is for you to give them something to do so that you can keep paying them the cash. Otherwise, we're paying cash for nothing. But the worst part is that these clowns that you're paying money to often don't have a skill, because all they did was have a basic qualification, even sometimes advanced, postgrad, PhD, but they don't have a skill. They don't know how to do the job. Now you're stuck with this individual and your business suffers for the longest of time. So we need to sleep on how do we not normalize unethical behavior to an extent that we pay forever. We just keep paying people, and to read the room that even if the person is the CEO of a business, at some point, they won't be the CEO of that specific business. I used to work for a company called Momentum. All the people who were my bosses and leaders at that time are no longer there. All of them. All of them. So if you apply that thinking and sleep on it tonight, it means all the people that you are busy paying will not be there when you have to face the music. Forget Madlanga Commission. Forget Madlanga Commission. There is a day in South Africa where commercials are going to be held accountable. The gifts that you are giving to your clients, big gifts, are going to be questioned. In the media, they had a concept when we hosted journalists and we wanted to give them a gift. Most journalists will say, I have to take it to the company for a raffle. So they will raffle this thing. It's not because they don't want the gift, it's attractive, but because of the work that they do. They do not take a bribe. They put it through a raffle, and the raffle will say, so and so has won this thing. And that's where hospitality and ethics meet. You and I, it's going to cost us strong to keep pleasing clients who are not really clients. I, in my business, have met clients both in South Africa and elsewhere. In Germany, they will pay a fair value fee and they will never ask for money. Clients that actually respect their reputation to that extent are the kind of clients that you want. So forget your friendship. So all of my business, my organization at Reputation First, we created that business outside of our previous relationships. So there's no one in my previous work environment or previous clients, previous business, who can say, when you worked for Discovery, I met you and therefore I gave you this business. In fact, the success of entrepreneurs happens on the day that you go to the on the 31st South African Investment Conference and you meet clients there. That's where you win the game. That's where the game is won. Not from our historical loyalty, which is often creates opportunities for corruption. Short-term gains versus sustainability, it's inevitable that when you take little cash and it feels like good cash, the consequences are actually often long-term and lethal, in a sense that you could spend 15 years in jail in South Africa. And it's not a threat. I find it odd that people are willing to compromise their names for a very bad digital footprint that's going to affect your entire family. Think about anybody who has been involved in a crime, especially commercial crime. Think about the fact that your name was Marcus Yoste, and now you have kids, and they're all this specific Yostes. People know that Yoste is a very generic name in South Africa, but they know the Yoste and this Yoste and you. And so you need to sleep. We, as entrepreneurs, small business, we need to sleep on our conduct, because the conduct that we live can become a legacy that our families and future generations may never recover from. Because your father and your mother and your sister and your brother and your cousin decided to choose a path that was I believe, very expensive. we believe reputation is a very strategic asset. There's no opportunity or life beyond reputation. When reputation is damaged, just like if you reference the SABC employee who was on a flight, Flights Affair, I believe, and they got emotional. Whatever happened before, but they got emotional. And today, their reputation is gone. They got very angry, very ugly, and they had to let go. Additionally, there's a lady in the UK who came to South Africa and said, oh, by the way, I'm going to Africa. And I hope I don't get AIDS. The issue was not about the story about HIV and AIDS. The principle for us in this room as entrepreneurs is that if you are on a flight, you get to a lounge and you have a bit of wine, put your phone away. Most people in that Madlanga Commission are struggling because of the cell phone, because they were talking, because they were sending things. And sometimes they were sending things that are, even people who are innocent, their names will be mentioned, and you might be the innocent one, but your name is going to be mentioned. Why? Because you had the urge to talk, and you take this thing with you to the bathroom all the time. The most unhygienic object, that cell phone. So entrepreneurs have to sleep on the fact that reputation is actually a strategic asset, not just a story. So unethical growth has hidden costs, and I'm going to call this part the hidden cost of unethical growth. So we don't accept as small businesses that every transaction, it carries an invisible cost. All transactions, every single one, it carries an invisible cost. You pay somebody, we've seen is 500 rands, but 500 rands have damaged not just a job, because everybody can recover from a job loss. It is the digital footprint that specific individual is going to suffer for a long time. For 500 bucks. 500 bucks. But worse, people with a lot of potential, businesses with a lot of potential, ideas that will thrive, are bleeding because you and I in this room right now, we get approached, we get asked for a gift. That gift might be 200 rands, 20 rands, 50 rands, sometimes $1 million. And that million doesn't happen once off. It might come in 20,000 rands. Yeah, please take my son to school. Please pay for my holiday. And in the end, those are the consequences. So I can see that I'm horribly out of time, but I want to leave these words, and this is very important. So how are we going to redefine the success for small businesses? For us, for me, at least in my view, it is completely not about making as much cash as you can. It's actually about creating a new path every single day and solving complex problems that our country, at least, I mean, South Africa, I understand people want to go out of the country and do business, but actually the opportunity is here. If we can solve for South Africa, we're going to solve for our lives. And if we solve for our lives, we don't have to pay anybody. to do strange things. So Ulrich says, Kensan, he says, if you can, be first. If you can't be first, create a new category in which you can be first. I thank you so much, and I hope that was useful. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much, Ntate Matseba, for those valuable insights. Honestly, I was glued to the screen. I wish we could have given you an hour, but unfortunately not, because this is a very, very important topic that indeed, your reputation speaks for you. It often goes before you. And in today's digital world, online presence plays a critical role in shaping that perception. So thank you once again for that contribution. We now shift our focus to innovation and the role of platforms in unlocking township economies. It is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Janice, who is the founder and CEO of Kasi Connect. Ms. Janice, the platform is yours.
Fabulous. Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Kinsani. Hi, everybody. And thank you to Proudly South African for this amazing platform. So I'd like to start by just framing what we understand as the township economy, because in different areas, it's viewed very differently. If we look at our bureaucratic structure, it sees the township economy as a largely non-compliant group of people doing business as a hustle. If we look at the banks, they're sitting waiting for that compliance to come so that they can up their banking clients. And I'm not saying there aren't people who do good and have good intent within both of those stakeholder groups. If we look at the multinationals, the Unilevers, the Procter & Gamble's, the local Tiger brands, for them, it's an incredible market, captive market that they can sell to. And if we look at people in suburbs who've never lived in the Kasi, the township economy is something over there. And sadly, that's true. Townships are always over there, of course, a legacy of 1956. And their over there-ness is a massive problem. Their proximity to the mainstream economy from Soweto to Sandton, it's a huge distance. And while Alex to Sandton is not a huge distance, there's still a proximity issue. So the over there-ness produces a challenge for us. And then if we move further and we say, actually, what is the township economy to Kasipreneurs? To many Kasipreneurs, they hear this figure of 900 billion that moves through the township per annum. It's even been taken up to 1.25 trillion rand per annum. But most Kasipreneurs are not benefiting from that movement of money. Most Kasipreneurs are actually survivalist. So as you can see, the township economy has a different meaning to many, to organizations like Proudly South African, Brand South Africa, Kasi Connect, my own organization, the Johannesburg Economic Development Department, Kensani, and I know this because we speak. The township economy is an incredible revolution waiting to happen. An economic revolution. It is the place where jobs will be created. It is the place where we could see an environment where people can work, play, live, and learn. It is a place that can become like a Sandton. And it's this place only if we pay better attention to how to do this. So in all those precursors that I mentioned, what is the township economy? With it, and with what the different groups see as the township economy, comes both challenges and opportunities. So let me share a little bit. And I hope I can. It's not allowing. There we go. And I'm hoping, there we go. Okay, so this is Kasi Connect. On the face of it, we're a LinkedIn. We've got about 2,500 Kasipreneurs who have business profiles. And just like LinkedIn, some are hugely informative, some are less informative. But what we set out to do is really map township entrepreneurs onto a geospace that they have a space, they are found for what they do, for where they are, for their product listings, etc. And as we kept on working, and we're a fairly new organization, although I've been in platform technology for 15 years, but Kasi Connect reached out to solve a problem. And when the Kasi Connect team looked at the problem, we said, there are all these stakeholders, they see the over there-ness, they flood the market with sometimes foreign goods, foreign-made goods, not South African-made goods, sometimes South African goods, but not made in the township. The money flows out of the township. It's the leaky bucket syndrome. How can we solve that? How can we solve that problem? And actually, it's very simple. It's all about hyperlocal. So if you go back into Johannesburg's immigrant history, and I'm talking white immigrant history, and you saw communities come in, Italian communities, Greek communities, Portuguese communities, Jewish communities. They supported each other. The money kept on circulating. The people would support. The Italians would go to an Italian tailor, an Italian doctor, an Italian business, an Italian restaurant. And the money kept on circulating, and that created strength in the community. If we look at the township, the money circulation is very poor. We have what we call LM3, which is kind of 3 points of circulation. Someone gets paid a wage, where they spend it, where it goes. The LM3 rating of our townships is between 1.25 and 1.75. Obviously, 3 is the optimal. And we'd like to strive for 2.75. Ambitious, but not impossible. And when we do that, we will create jobs. We will start creating a place where people can live, play, work, and learn. This is what townships 31 years after the end of apartheid should have been anyway. They should be a place where, if I don't want to commute from 5 a.m. and get home at 9 a.m. for a 9-to-5 job, I can choose to work in the township. But that choice today doesn't really exist. So what are we doing to change that? Firstly, we have to keep the money inside. So where does the money leave? The money leaves the minute a mall goes up. People think it's fantastic development to have a mall in a township. Actually, it's terrible, because the minute the rand, someone with a rand, with 10 rand, walks through the entrance of that mall, the money leaves the township. Because none of those stores in the mall are actually owned by township entrepreneurs or Kasipreneurs, as we call them. None of them. I think there is a shift in that, and I've been watching an interesting Vosloorus mall where one of our Kasipreneurs actually has a store, which is really exciting. But we have the leaky bucket syndrome. So how do we keep the money in the township? So we developed something, and of course, platforms can do a bunch of interesting things. For those of you who use LinkedIn, I'm a prolific LinkedIn user, or Facebook, or our worlds are ruled by platforms. You know, we're on Uber, which is a platform. We're on Netflix, a platform. We're on Takealot, a platform. Platform essentially anywhere where you have a profile that has some data on you. That's a platform. So this is Spaza Supply Plus, and this is one of our early innovations. The idea of Spaza Supply Plus is that the supply chain should be 100% owned by the Kasi. So what do we mean by that? What we mean by that is there are township manufacturers, and they're amazing Kasi manufacturers. If I told you there's a manufacturer that is making a non-traditional macheo using baobab as a superfood, and it becomes a superfood porridge. There is a Kasipreneur making kimchi kombucha. You know, we think this is the real northern suburbs hype. It's not. It's happening in the township. There is a township entrepreneur that played around with pumpkin juice. It's phenomenal. I've tasted it. So there really are, and it's not just in food product. There are sheer body butter products and coffee scrubs and really incredible ranges of things. So I'm not going to get onto the compliance issue immediately, but this is one of the big speed bumps on our road. But let's talk about what Spices Supply Plus is. So the idea is a township manufacturer gets onto a township shelf via township-owned logistics. That's the 100% Kasi-owned supply chain. So we need to know who manufacturers are, and of course, platforms can do that. And let me introduce you to some of them. So as you can see here, there are people who make jams and energy drinks, and wonderful woman here. The other day at the Proudly South Africa show, she came across my stand, and of course I know her, and I ended up buying a lot from her. And walking home with amazing nuts and peanut butters and macadamia nut butters, and it's happening. It's happening in the township. So the township entrepreneur, the Kasi manufacturer, is there. Of course, we know that the Kasi shelves are there. They're there en masse. And if I go back here, what we're working on doing is, because we believe you have to own the whole aisle to make a hyperlocal economy. So in other words, what we want to do is we want to start acknowledging the spouses and independent supermarkets that stock the local product. And we have started a conversation with Proudly South Africa. How do we do that? How do we make sure that the shelf is also proudly South African? So that becomes an interesting challenge, because of course we can say there are all these wonderful products, but if you can't find them, it doesn't work. And then there are what people traditionally call last mile delivery. In Soweto, we're working with an amazing e-bike company called Shavy Bike. But for us, they're actually the first mile. The last mile is only if you are the Procter & Gamble's getting the Pampers bulk broken and brought into the township, and you want someone to do the last mile. So Shavy Bike is not a last mile. They're our first mile. And that's what we want. We want everything to be our first mile in the township. We want everything to be structured in a way that it can work as a connected ecosystem. So I've had the timer on, and I see I've got 3 minutes left. In those 3 minutes, I'm going to explain what I mean by the connected, and I'm going to stop sharing. So what I mean by the connected ecosystem, if we look at the traditional average township manufacturer, in order to get onto a shelf, let's say it's a jam maker. We have a guy, All Day Jam. He's a Proudly South African member. And All Day Jam needs to get onto a shelf. All Day Jam needs to understand all the compliances. And we know there are rigorous compliances around food, which there absolutely should be. But jumping through those hoops is, one, a task for someone of great intellect, which most of us aren't. Secondly, it's a task for someone that has a fair amount of money, because the testing process is expensive. And thirdly, it's about getting the branding, the labeling, the barcoding, and everything correct, visible, etc. So if we look at the Over There story, Over There has been left out of a lot of things. The Over There, the Kasi economy, the township entrepreneurs, because of their over there-ness, they are distanced from the learning of these processes, the access to digital information, the being able to do search without going to a small internet cafe somewhere. And now we're expecting them to understand and access and connect with and get funding to all of these things. And that's where the ecosystem comes in. And that's where platform technology can start building the scaffolding around the township entrepreneur, that they have an easy to understand way to get their product compliant, that they have some kind of support. And believe me, township entrepreneurs are not just looking for handouts. We surveyed them and we said, where do you need help? We had one township entrepreneur who said to us, a manufacturer who said, I have 2,500 glass bottles, but I just don't have the cash flow for the raw materials to get my product into those bottles. She said, if there was some kind of revolving credit through Spaza Supply Plus, where we could get a letter of intent from the Spaza or the independent supermarket that they would be an off-taker of our product and they would stock it even on consignment, then could we get a loan against that? This is what we need to keep innovating. The banks need to stop waiting for this compliance story. The bureaucrats have to think of another way of tackling it. It's not worked. In all the years, the waiting and driving and calling the informal non-compliant and labeling everything as if it simply doesn't work. It doesn't work not because of the township entrepreneurs. It doesn't work because the framework is wrong. So we need to innovate. And if there are innovators out there with ideas, I'm available, contact me. But we need to innovate around this revolution, this economic revolution waiting to happen. So I'm just over my 15 minutes, nearly 16, but thank you again. And Kensani, back to you.
Thank you, Janice. I wish we could have also been given more time. I know 15 minutes is just not sufficient enough to speak on the township economy, because there's just quite a lot of nuances, that goes into it. And I know you have quite a lot of, a wealth of insights that you would have shared with us. But of course, hopefully there will be some kind of presentations that will be also made available. And also, you mentioned the sites where our entrepreneurs can also go and visit your website. And I think those will be shared as well. Maybe perhaps, if you don't mind, Janice, maybe you can just type your website on the platform as well, so that they can also be able to visit your resources and see how they can take advantage of your platform. Okay, we now move ahead to more about institutional and policy perspective, focusing particularly on local procurement. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Mxolisi Mqunu, who is a specialist on economic development at SALGA. Mr. Mqunu, the platform is yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Nkensani. And let me take this opportunity to also express my greetings to everyone present. And on behalf of SALGA, we are delighted to be part of this conversation. And thanks again to Proudly SA for inviting us. I will quickly start sharing my screen. So I'm going to just put a focus on procurement as an enabler for local economic development. And it speaks to local government specifically, in a sense that as a sphere of government, we also have to walk the talk and lead from the front in supporting the broader objectives of trying to ensure that we can acquire as many goods and services locally, in order to support the South African economy in line with what Proudly SA seeks to achieve, really, which is to ensure that we can boost local manufacturing and ensure that we have as many transactions taking place locally. And it has become all the more important, of course, given the geopolitics that we are seeing, the supply shocks. So it becomes so important that we're able to build a level of resilience within the South African economy, and there's no better way than to support local value chain and also through local procurement. So some of the themes I am going to be touching on, as you can see there on the screen. The first part is just context, making a case for local procurement, looking at the local multiplier effect, and also what can we do around enterprise and supply development. So the first part really speaks to the mandate of local government, which we derive from Section 152 of the Constitution, which amongst others calls on us to promote social and economic development. And this is further, elaborated upon in the white paper on local government, which is currently under review, that as a sector, we are duty bound to ensure that in everything that we do, we create the most enabling environment for jobs to be created. So as a country, we have a number of challenges, but I would say the existential one is that of chronic inequality, which continues to widen. And this, is one of the challenges that, continue to bedevil the country, that we have to tackle, heads on. And there's no better illustration of that than with the picture, the images that are on screen. So we are dealing with an uneven field that is not in any way incidental, but structural and rooted, of course, in our historical legacy. So we can then employ strategic procurement as a tool that we can use to bridge the inequality gap. Now, looking at just the broader context, the scale of municipal spend, and this is these are the numbers from National Treasury. That the aggregate municipal expenditure, is in the region of plus minus 650 billion rand. So that's a huge amount of spending power that resides within municipalities. And, with regards to some of the major cost drivers, we're spending plus minus 35% on bulk purchases. Employee costs account for 27%, and other goods and services, as well. So there's a massive amount of procurement spend that we hold as local government, and that we need to deploy in a strategic manner if we are to make a dent. And there was a study, of course, that was commissioned by Proudly SA, which showed that a 10% increase in manufacturing investment could deliver 3% growth and plus minus 75,000 new manufacturing jobs. So as local government, we play an important part in supporting those, because we're the ones at the forefront providing land, bulk infrastructure, and other utilities that are essential, for manufacturing to thrive. So that's basically, where we come in and why our role is so important. When it comes to procurement, we've got, a market concentration conundrum as a country. We've struggled so much to untangle this, this conundrum that continues really to set us back in terms of us trying to decentralize the economy. So it's common knowledge that our economy is heavily concentrated. We've got a few big players in the market, and this really hampers the decentralization of procurement opportunities. I mean, if you look at the case in point, I'm not going to read word for word, but we've seen a number of inquiries by the Competition Commission where, for instance, retailers, industries, companies would collude, when it comes to, government contracts, or even, negotiate some forms of exclusivity with the view of trying to, increase those barriers which are already there. And this practice is pervasive in many sectors. And I mean, we all remember the inquiry of the construction companies that built the 2010 World Cup stadiums. All of that coming out from the Competition Commission inquiry. And this just demonstrates the level, the extent of which some of the big companies will go to ensure that they can, maintain their market dominance. So as we make a case for local procurement, why are we advocating for that? It's because municipalities possess significant yet often underutilized tool to invigorate the local economy. If we can try to purchase goods and services from local suppliers, we can ensure that the spending power that we have can create jobs, stimulate entrepreneurship, and also foster economic growth. And we also believe that local procurement offers a viable pathway to address some of the historical inequalities, that confront us as a country. If we direct our spending power towards local suppliers, we can promote inclusive growth and ensure that those benefits are accrued to amongst historically marginalized groups, and thereby enhancing economic sustainability, building robust supply chains, ensuring that we can limit our dependency on external suppliers, as is our economy is heavily dependent on external factors, and this is evidenced by the upcoming fuel hikes. And the shocks that we are going to be experiencing as of next month, on the basis that we are so vulnerable to external shocks. So by procuring more locally, we are able to shore up local industries, build resilience within the local economy, and I think that is so pivotal, especially in the fragile, geopolitical environment that we see ourselves operating in. Then also advance restorative justice. So I did allude earlier on to the fact that we've got this existential and chronic, challenge of inequality that we can't seem to be able to shake off. So this procurement can also serve as a tool to address restorative justice. That said, we're also not oblivious to the many challenges that face our members. So as we've been having these training programs, workshops with our municipalities, they've also shared with us what are some of the challenges that they face. As supply chain practitioners, local economic development managers as well, in terms of trying to procure locally. So we all know, especially in smaller municipalities, there's a limited supplier base. So you find that we don't have people with the necessary capacity, skills, or resources to fill those requirements. Quality and standards compliance. So as municipalities, when we procure, of course, there are some goods and services where there are strict compliance standards. And some of them, of course, they will be regulated by bodies that manage quality. So all of that is a big issue when it comes to smaller businesses. There are also administrative and bureaucratic hurdles that businesses face, because procurement is highly regulated. So there are a number of administrative processes that those smaller businesses in those smaller local businesses have to go through, and sometimes they are not well versed with some of the processes. They don't have the know-how, and that also then does put them on the back foot when it comes to local procurement. And also value for money. I mean, it is enshrined in our constitution that as state organs, when we procure goods and services, and the one front and center should always be value for money. And unfortunately, because of scale, some of our local suppliers are unable to offer value for money because, for instance, they have to, as we procure from them, they have to then go buy those services from wholesalers, bigger companies, and then put a markup and supply the municipality. And as such, they are really unable to offer competitive prices. But also a bigger one is the fact that as municipalities, we employ local procurement. We try and support our local businesses. We put out requests for quotations, requests for proposals, and when our local suppliers, get these contracts, they would then source these services. I mean, all these products from the bigger manufacturers and often in bigger cities, like Johannesburg, for instance. And what then happens is that because this has been sourced in bigger cities or metros, the value basically seeps out of the locality. So we are losing value because we are not having these transactions taking place locally. So what happens then afterwards is that these local businesses, go back to square one and again lining up for municipal contracts. So in addition to just looking at procurement of goods locally, we also need to look at the entire value chain. One of the speakers spoke about that. When we issue a contract, we must be certain that at least that supplier is sourcing locally. And we try and limit the amount of the seepage of value of money into other areas or regions outside of the locality, because this does undermine broadly our own objective of trying to sustain the local economy. And also, local procurement enhances the multiplier effect. Studies constantly show that when consumers spend their monies locally, the benefits multiply and have a compounding effect on the local economy. So this can have a significant impact on businesses. It can create jobs and also lead to overall economic vitality. So here's an example with respect to this. So it's all about having as many rands circulating locally before they are spent elsewhere. So if we are in Mamelodi, for instance, we want to create a self-sustaining economy within the township. So if someone who's got a spaza shop spends 100 rand, and in the next business, and that person spends at a local saloon, and the same person spends as well, at a different business. So we've got 4 transactions, and the money spent in the local economy is 400 rands, and those people also create more jobs within the economy. So what's happening right now is that within the township economies, we have, I'll make an example. We've got shopping malls, and yes, I mean, they bring a lot of convenience, but I'm not a major proponent of shopping malls in historically black townships, because what you find is that the retailers in those malls, almost none of them are owned by township residents. You've got the same retailers. For instance, in Mamelodi, Soweto, Soshanguve, it's all the same. And the money spent by township residents is expatriated to more affluent areas. And I've gone through a number of research papers on shopping malls in townships. I mean, one, for instance, in areas of Bushbuck Ridge, some in Soweto, Soshanguve, where you find that within about 6 or 12 months after a new shopping mall having opened, a number of township businesses within a 5-kilometer radius either shut down or are displaced completely. So we've got to look at the entire value chain around township economies, and also where that money goes. The money that township dollars are spending, where it goes, is it circulating within the township economy, or is it being expatriated to other parts? Okay, and now we've got a new Public Procurement Act. Now, this is from a policy perspective. It's a welcome shift in a sense that it does have this set aside on procurement, but this can only work if we are able to seize the opportunity. So why I'm saying that is, if you just glance through some sections of the public procurement, it does have a specific set asides. Whereas in the past, for example, when one spoke of local, it referred to the jurisdiction of South Africa. But now, when we design procurement contracts as municipalities, we're able to be more specific. That, for example, that for this particular RFQ, we are targeting residents of Sedibeng district, for example, or we say for this particular contract, we are only targeting residents of Merafong local municipality, because we believe that we do have the skill and expertise within. So if we fail to get it within our locality, then we'll look elsewhere. And we can also design certain contracts to say, for this one, we are targeting, for example, Black women only. We are targeting the youth. So contracts can now be more specific. Whereas before it was not, we were not able to do that because it would have been seen as being discriminatory towards other groups. So it is basically now, you're able to be more explicit around who is being targeted for a certain contract. Because there are a lot of contracts where you find that you've got the skills within, your jurisdiction. So why go out? So now, for the first time, through these regulations, it will allow us to say we're targeting Black people, Black women, people with disabilities, for instance, the youth, and so forth. So it's going to be up to each municipality now to be able to really curate their own supply chain policy in such a sense that it responds to the new Public Procurement Act and regulations. But I also want to touch on this. We need to also do more in terms of enterprise and supply development, because supply chain is at the tail end when it comes to procurement. To get the businesses, ready, matured enough to a point where they've been able to scale up, modernize, have the capacity to compete for municipal contracts. They need to go through these different stages of growth, and it's really incumbent on all of us, especially government entities within this value chain. For instance, we've got the Small Enterprise Development Finance Agency. We've got Department of Small Business Development, but also a number of other entities which are non-government. We need to really collaborate more around enterprise and supply development, but also calling on the private sector. Companies are the ones really that have got a bigger role to play, around this aspect in terms of trying to work on improve enterprise and supply development, because it's only once we fix this part that we will get our entrepreneurs to be better placed to then benefit from municipal contracts. Okay, last but not least, as I've just said, municipal supply chains are the tail end of the process. And for them, they focus on procurement efficiency and regulatory compliance. Supply chain is heavily regulated, as we all know. So when, for them, it's about getting the 3 quotations, the lowest one, and making sure that they can, meet the requirements, and that when they're being audited, they're able to explain, the rationale behind their decisions. But for broader LED to drive municipalities, we need to then have supply chain embedded within the LED program. And hence, even with our training programs, it's both the local economic development practitioners as well as supply chain officials that we really merge into this training program, so that we're able to harmonize our plans as we all work towards a common goal. And also, we know that in municipalities, infrastructure is the biggest expenditure item. Hence, we've also had quite a strong focus, on that department, and also trying to assist them to embed localization in procurement. So when you have a procurement, a project for a road project, for example, in designing specifications, there'll be elements that, for instance, you compel the main contractor to source their raw materials locally, to source some of their inputs from local suppliers. So all of that, should be done at a design stage of the contract and not be an afterthought, as has often been the case, in other instances. And yeah, I've already spoken to enterprise and supply development. Really, it should be a front and center in terms of our focus, because once we get businesses to the right level, through the ESG programs, then we don't really have to be, hand holding them afterwards, because they'll be able to then go out there and flourish on their own. And with that, thanks so much, Program Director, and yeah, thanks for the invite.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mkunu, for providing clarity on local procurement and its role in driving economic participation. Just a reminder to all our participants, we encourage you to start sharing your reflections, your questions, your inputs. It's also an opportunity for you to engage directly with our speakers who are still on the platform. So you can also direct your questions to specific speakers on the chat box. Please do so. We will give you the opportunity through the Q&A session, where we'll then get to respond, and our speakers will get to respond directly to your questions. We now move into a practical business perspective from a proudly South African member. So it is my pleasure to welcome Mpho Ledwaba, who will from Breadbox Bakery. Mr. Ledwaba, over to you.
Good day, everyone, to all participants, and thank you very much to the program director, Nkensani. Thank you. And I think it's a tough one when you have to speak after such eloquent speakers who have spoken about really important things, from your reputation to how you map out supply chains, Janice, as well as looking at procurement. I guess my role is to actually just bring it all together in terms of our experiences and as a business. I am the co-founder of the Breadbox Bakery and Studio. And just in short, how the business started was that our focus was really just on baked goods. And that was about 8 years ago when we started the business. Started humbly from the home, with my wife, just focusing on giving some people some training in terms of giving them a skill on baking, which is something that she learned from an early age. That soon became very commercial, and 2 ovens later broken in the house. We had to look for a retail space. And when we went into the retail space, and Janice, we didn't go into the township, we went to a township called Midrand. And it's such challenges where you're also trying to break into a new market, and you are also not getting all the benefits of those businesses that are growing in the Gasi. So you are caught in between. So that has been something that we had to navigate while growing the business in the mainstream of your urban areas. In growing that business, I think we started with baked goods. It was all doing good. And then we expanded into a cooking studio, which was really a great opportunity that we looked at. But as soon as that opportunity was realized, we went into both load shedding and COVID. And we had this asset that we couldn't use. We also looked at ways in which we can turn it around. And it was actually on the spur of the moment where we started looking at opportunities of how do we actually embrace the digital world to actually just use some of the assets that we've got. We also use the cooking studio to also assist with some feeding programs where we were also preparing some meals. We gathered around with some other business people who were donating stock, and we were also preparing bread as well as some food for some people in need. Also, that was a period where we also looked at how do we package things differently in terms of how do we embrace the digital world, and also how do we serve people baked goods in the home. And needless to say that there was a lot of activity that was happening on social media, because people now started to realize that they can bake at home. And a whole lot of flops that we were seeing on social media. And my partner and I, we started looking at, can we actually create some solutions that will help people to actually do those baked goods at home? A lot of the problems that people were facing were that they did not know how to measure in proportions in terms of how much yeast, sugar, and so on. And we developed a premix solution. And the premix solutions that we've got is the magwinya mix, the dumpling, the scones, as well as the cake mix. And that on its own became another category that was born in our business, which we looked at growing and actually expanding to go into the retail spaces. The solutions that we've got right now are available nationally also, where people can buy it on some online platforms, either on our online platform, on our website, or with the likes of Macro Online, which is the only one that has got a national footprint where we are listed. We are looking at other opportunities in terms of retail shelves. But as Janice indicated earlier on, there is a lot of regulatory hoops that we need to get to actually get our listings in the main retail stores. So with that, also being in Midrand, we started looking at other opportunities over the years, where we started looking at corporate catering, which has been a good expansion. We have also had another store, which was an expansion into one of the big campuses of a big business in Midrand. And though the opportunity looked great on paper, when we got to the practicalities of it, the risks and challenges that we faced was, one, sabotage by big businesses, which were also operating in the same space, where we had people cutting electricity to our ovens, electricity to our fridges. We had losses of stock in that. And we had to really make a tough decision of saying that sometimes, Bratsepo, for your own reputation, you have to actually pull out, even if the opportunity looks great. Because one, in the long run, we were not going to look good, because then we couldn't control our product. And also because of the sabotage, we were going to fail. We also looked at it and saying it's a great opportunity to be associated with this big brand, but in real sense, in terms of your reality of the business, is that we had to pull out, because otherwise it was going to bleed our business dry. And we had to pull out from there, a tough decision. But needless to say that some of those doors that were closed have actually given us an opportunity for new doors to open up. And we have been able to get some other corporate contracts where we are giving them some baked goods. Some of the corporate contracts, or some of the stores that we support, are also proudly South African members, where we are looking at your online food distribution platforms, which are doing exceptionally well for us. And just to look at the last 12 months, when we did our analysis, we realized that at least about 40% of what we sell as ready made big products are actually going through the online food distribution platforms, which is a great opportunity. I think those are some of the fundamentals of the business in terms of how we've been navigating the landscape and actually progressing the business. Some of the challenges that we are facing right now, and I guess a lot of people might not know, is that in the past 2 years, we've seen the price of cocoa, which is a main ingredient that when you do your chocolate cakes and all your chocolate baked goods, has actually gone up by 300%. And how do you justify such a price increase to your products? And we had to find ways in which we can be clever in terms of how do we repackage some of the products that we do with cocoa? How do we repack them in a way that they are still affordable? Because those are not just your staples, they are actually luxury goods where people are actually looking for, they have a choice whether they want it or not. It's not really a need. And right now also we are looking at a number of challenges. Load shedding has been a big blow for us over the time, but I think over the time as it stabilized and we've got now electricity in ample supply, God forbid that anything happens to our generation. But with that being solved, we had a challenge now with Midrand, which was never an issue previously, Midrand having an issue with water shortages. And those are some of the things that we are navigating as we're going along. We are also experiencing a number of price increases from the oils and fats in terms of oleomargarines and that are happening. And we are looking at ways where we substitute them with other products like your palm oils and so on where possible. We are also looking at the challenge that is coming in a week's time, which is really the petrol price, which we need to find ways in which we can soften the blow for the business as well as for the clients that are buying our products. Because if we push the price too high, we will see a slump in sales. I guess in all of that, what the business has done in terms of looking at all the offerings that we've got over time, we had to move the business or to actually innovate on products and services to actually capture new markets as well as to diversify our baskets of offering. And that has actually enabled us not only to survive as a business, but also has enabled us to actually grow in certain parts. And one of the biggest story for us is that when we look at the past 12 months, we have managed to double our business in the last 12 months in terms of our offerings because of the expansion decisions that we have made. And also we are in a learning phase where we have had our school fees, where we've gone to I think we exhibited our premixes in places that we never thought of. Just to give you a view, one of the things that we exhibited on was we managed to exhibit our premixes to USA in New York. And the market was very receptive for something like Magwinya. And where most of the people who are coming up north from Africa have been saying that this is puff, and we've learned permutations of this lovely product that we've got, which is our morning meal in South Africa, which is enjoyed all over the world. And we are looking at, is there a possibility to look at an export market in that space? So we are doing our lessons on that. And also we have looked at also some other technology from other markets in terms of understanding, is there new technology that we can use that can standardize our product, new technology that can actually reduce our cost in terms of our input cost on electricity, and looking at new techniques in which we can actually make baked goods as well as food as a whole more enjoyable. If anything else from our business, I think the one thing that we pride ourselves, which is our state-of-the-art cooking studio, which has just been unveiled. It's just more than 18 months old right now, but it is an exceptional place to go to for your team buildings and for also just looking at ways where you can enjoy meal times. We are all about creating meal times that are enjoyable. And this is an opportunity where you don't just go to enjoy your steak. You can actually partake in actually knowing how to actually prepare your steak. And that is my sales pitch for anyone who'd like to visit us, www.breadbox.co.za. Open for questions later on.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwaba. I think more than anything, we really, I was also glued to the screen when you were presenting, and I picked up a lot on your resilience and your innovation and flexibility, you know, and how even your pricing strategies and all of that. So it's just, I think it's something that maybe our entrepreneurs can also learn from, to say, if something doesn't work, you reinvent it and you keep changing it, and until you get it right, until you find your rhythm. So I think you found your rhythm, and that's the reason why now opportunities are, you know, falling on your lap. So I just want to thank you for that very, very insightful presentation on your journey. We now steam ahead and move towards Q&A, opportunity for Q&A. There are some few questions on the platform. So I will encourage again those that are itching to ask questions, kindly post it on the chat box. Yeah, we welcome all the questions also from the social media platform as well. Just to start off, I also have a question. I think I'll direct it to Mr. Kunu, and I'll also direct it to Janice. What is the one key shift businesses must make to remain competitive in the next 3 to 5 years? I think, Janice, I will direct the question to you.
Thanks, Kensani. I think for Kasi businesses, they really need to understand the opportunity. The opportunities in the township are massive. Delivering doorstep type convenience is massive. And I think that because they are so removed from the mainstream economy, there's often a tendency to look at others, see their success. So maybe there's a chili maker and now there are 100 chili makers. So I think for Kasi businesses, there is a massive problem solving. And we know it's the first rule of business. What problem am I solving?
Wonderful. Okay, that is yeah, that's a very, very valid answer. I will now open it on the chat box just to see what our participants are saying. So it says here, as a member of the anti-GBV movement, I am excited to see there's been mention of, oh goodness, the question is gone. Okay, hold on. Apologies, just hold on. Okay, let me read the next question then. This online event is so full of oh, that's because Nkolisi has already answered the question. Let me go down and check. Yes, he's already answered the question. Hold on. So it was a question about the target, SALGA's target for women empowerment. Okay, I think Polisi has provided an answer there. So let me read the question. It says, as a member of the anti-GBV movement, I am excited to see there's been mention of a need to amplify gender mainstream through prioritized procurement targeted by design. So what are the targets for women empowerment in SALGA? So, and Xolisi responded already in his 2026 State of the Nation address. The President Ramaphosa called on organ of states, including your SALGA, to allocate at least 30% of public procurement to women-owned businesses. In response, SALGA has been actively supporting municipalities to mainstream women enterprise within their procurement strategies and policies. So that is the response. Yes. I encourage more questions. This one is basically asking for context. It says this online event is so full of insights, expert knowledge, and information that is so rich and powerful. My work will be more informed and guided because of the quality of this content. Please do share names, surnames, emails, contacts, and associated organization, institutions, companies that our valued speakers are aligned with. Warmly, project manager at the Resilience Rising Initiative, NPC, recommended member of the NCB GBVF 2026. So yes, so the team from Proudly will definitely get hold of all the presentations. I've also asked Janice to also put her website on the platform so that you are able to then get in touch and also be able to take advantage of her resources. Let's see. I think we've exhausted all the questions. Let me go back to my program. There is a hand though on the platform, but I think it's a legacy hand. It's been there for quite some time. I don't know if the Proudly team are able to allow or give the rights to the hand that is up. But I would encourage you, if you have a question, I just want to see who the hand belongs to. Ntsako Makhubele. If you have a question, kindly post it on the platform as well. Let's see here. I think mostly we're about requesting also for details about the speakers. And that would be made available through the Proudly Essays platforms. So as we come to the end of today's session, I think what the key message that is being reinforced is the fact that we do not lack opportunities as a country. What is required is readiness, adaptability, and strategic positioning. So whether through ethical business practices or digital innovation or local procurement or resilience entrepreneurship, the responsibility really lies in all of us, to translate those opportunities into impact. So I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to all of our speakers, to Proudly South African for putting together this very, very important webinar, and all our participants, both on the platform and across social media. Thank you once again for joining us. And I think the key messaging for me is the fact that, the future will not wait for us. We must position ourselves to lead it. So I thank you and have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon forward.